In the last calendar year since the Trump administration has returned to the White House, Trump's base has been really split down the middle and has really been giving him a lot of pushback on a plethora of different topics, including economic frustrations. A lot of people feel differently about the tariffs and the trade policy, the lack of transparency coming from the Trump administration, despite them marketing and campaigning themselves on being the most transparent administration in American history, foreign policy, and who and how much money we should be sending to other nations. And then there's been the Epstein files. Everyone from Pam Bundy, FBI Director Kash Patel, and even Trump himself marketed and campaigned themselves on championing anyone who believed in releasing those files. And we know the rest. We know the history of what's been happening over the past year. It's almost as if the entire administration has been gaslighting its own base and the American people for wanting exactly what they campaigned on, releasing the files. You even have Dan Bongino stepping down from the Trump administration, returning back to podcasting just to attack, gaslight, and insult the same base that he was telling just a year ago to not leave the Epstein files alone. No matter what you do, don't stop asking questions. We all know what happened to Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk had finally come around and was saying what's going on with the Epstein situation. The Epstein files should be released. And it wasn't until just the past couple of weeks, the files were released, but with more than 90% of the files redacted, with not only the victims' names being redacted, but some of the perpetrators. It's been proven that some of the perpetrators' names were also redacted in the files. And this is after they told us there were no files to begin with. Well, it's hit a completely different level. There is a decorated former Iraq war veteran by the name of Sasha Riley. And I don't know how I've never seen this. The audio files just released, but the Substack that we're going to read in this video has been out since last year, late last year, but it's just now getting the attention of many of us content creators. This war veteran, who is still, by the way, fairly young, is making some of the most horrifying allegations that you'll ever hear in your life, to the point where I don't even know if this will be allowed on YouTube. I'm going to try my best to edit it and get it to where this can be shown on YouTube. If not, it will be on Patreon for free for everybody to listen to. This war veteran is alleging that Supreme Court Judge Clarence Thomas, Senator Lindsey Graham, President Donald Trump, and Jeffrey Epstein all engaged in a child trafficking ring that involved children being violated and exploited all over this country. I will include the link in the description to the original video that a couple of my supporters sent to me, where you can find the unedited audio file. Unfortunately, to my understanding, there is no video to go along with this. But as always, what's most important are the accusations that are being made here. So without further ado, we're gonna go and read some of the Substack that was posted, I believe, in November of last year. And then we're going to transition to the audio files. This is called Don't Worry, Boys Are Hard to Find, part 1 of 2, and you'll understand why the title of this Substack is just this. And again, it's horrifying. And the author of this Substack is a woman by the name of Lisa Noel Volding. And yes, it was posted on November 23rd, 2025. So essentially about 2.5 months ago, if that. It starts off with a Bible quote or a Bible verse, Luke chapter 12, verses 2-3. However, nothing is covered up that will not be revealed, or hidden that will not be known. Whatever you have said in the dark will be heard in the light, and what you have whispered in the inner rooms will be proclaimed from the housetops. Publisher's note: these briefings contain first-hand accounts of extreme child torture and unalivings conducted within the Trump, Epstein, and associated criminal enterprises over the course of several decades. This briefing is part 1 of 2. It includes 6, interesting number there, unedited audio recordings. I recorded the audio myself. The master files remain in my custody. Copies of these recordings and supporting documentation have been securely distributed to police and to trusted allies in several countries. Part 2 maps selected incidents to supporting evidence. I will publish additional information at my discretion. I decided to publish these accounts in the public interest. Investigations are ongoing. During the years SR, or Sasha Riley, was within the Trump-Epstein ring, he was forced to perform inappropriate acts during the filming of several child pornography films, including a snuff film. He recalls at least 10 to 12 such films. During the snuff film shoot, SR saw a girl shot and killed during filming. After another film shoot, a girl child was taken to another room. SR recalls hearing gunshots. He said that when he heard the gunshots, he was scared. He said that another perpetrator still in the room with him, sensing his fear, said, "Don't worry, boys are hard to find." These films were produced within the Trump-Epstein ring. It says, summary, I met Sasha Riley, a decorated Iraq war veteran. During the course of my work, I realized he needed help. I offered to help. I helped. I first spoke with him by phone and recorded his initial victim testimony during July 19 through 24, 2025. His testimony is a window into the systemic torture and of impoverished children under the ages of 13 for profit and sport within the Trump, Epstein, and associated criminal enterprises. Sasha was adopted during 1977 for the purposes of by William Kyle Riley, who is a family member of Sasha's. Sasha was trafficked by UKR within the Trump Epstein ring from about 9 to 13 years old. Prior to within the Trump Epstein ring, Sasha was to relatives from about the age of 6 years old. WKR worked as a pilot for Trump and conspirators within the Trump, Epstein, and associated criminal enterprises. WKR hunted victims, transported clients and victims on airplanes and helicopters, and silenced victims, including by. And WKR and his father, Paul, worked within the Dixie Mafia. Sasha is one of the only survivors from during those years. Perpetrators Sasha is willing to testify against include Donald J. Trump, Andy Biggs, Jim Jordan, Lindsey Graham, and Clarence Thomas. Please see audio recordings A through F and Part 2 section, a bullet of case background for more detail. I told Sasha I would publish audio of our conversation unedited and unredacted. And so I am, for myself, for Sasha, and for his friends Samantha and Patricia and Sarah, all of whom died, and for the rest of the victims buried on all the farms, the ranches, the patches of wilderness across the good, sweet earth, and for the rest of the innocent. The evidence is ample. Pornography films, videos, CPS reports, FBI reports on WKR, and a military report involving the court material of a fellow soldier found with child pornography depicting Sasha and one of the victims, Samantha, a decade earlier. Much of the evidence has been suppressed. Some is obtainable by FOIA request and by investigator request. But what must be understood is that the corroborative evidence is supplemental. The corroborative evidence supports the truthful testimony. And truthful testimony of what was seen and heard and experienced is not only evidence, but among the most important evidence. And while truthful testimony and supporting evidence is important evidence of truth, the truth itself is evidence, essential evidence, primary evidence, vas prima. And the fraudulent systems that suppress the truth and oppress the innocent will no longer stand. The truth cannot be hidden by falsehoods. Whether be falsehoods are told inadvertently or intentionally, by the well-intended misled, or by the bleeding false prophets, bleeding falsehoods, and insidious insinuations of truth, such as insinuations about victim credibility. In a truly just system of justice, victim credibility must never, ever be considered a criteria or prerequisite or requisite of justice at all. A system where the credibility of the victim is considered a criteria or requisite or prerequisite for pursuing justice is a fallacy. A system where the victim's credibility is demonized instead of the perpetrator's guilt rightly determined and punished in respect to and in honor of the victim is demonic. I state again, a system where the victim's credibility is demonized is demonic. Please listen to the testimony to discern the truth yourselves. And this is Sasha here. Sasha Riley, when he was a little boy and when he was in the Army. And I haven't listened to all of these. I listened to a good chunk of the main one that can be found in the description. Again, I want to state for the record that everything in this video is alleged. I do not know if this is absolute truth. I am only reacting to things that other people have said. And with that, here's the first portion of the audio.
So I just want to clarify in terms of date, July 18th, 2025. My full name, Lisa Noel Volding. And Riley, do you want to state your name and any other names?
My name is William. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. My name is William Sasha Riley. I was born Manuel Sasha Barros.
Okay.
But my legal name is William Sasha Riley at this time.
Okay. In terms of what my approach, really what I wanted to do is like to just really like a thorough discussion. You tell me everything that you've been wanting to say. And
okay.
I'll ask some questions, recording with an eye to your testimony, getting your testimony of what you
okay.
experienced, what you suffered, and what you were witness to.
I am for whatever puts a light on this, because in my mind, the powers that be are already aware of my position on it and aware that I have spoken up. And, you know, the more light that is shed on there, I don't think that I'm incurring more risk, except for some maybe lunatic that wants to be a soldier for Donald Trump, because they are a little crazy. They're a little brainwashed. But I don't mind whatever would bring a little bit more light to this, particularly the stuff. If we can get some of this stuff verified, you know, and I know that me speaking up is one thing, but then the verification process, you know, is important too. And I have read about software where, you know, facial recognition software that taps into the banks of known cataloged child. So if the films that they had me make can be verified, you know, it's not something that I can go online, but I am confident that it's there, because somebody that I served with in the Army got put out of the Army for child. My chain of command talked to me and they said, hey, you know, some of these images, some of the films or whatever that he had look just like you. And that was the first time I think I had ever talked to anybody about having done those films. And I told them, yes, when I was a child, I had to do those things.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about that circumstance. Like, so you were in the Army. What years were you in the Army then?
This would have been my second time in the Army. I rejoined in, 2002.
Yeah.
And I retired in 2016. I was in from 91 to 98 as well. So I did a little over 21 years. But the time frame that they pulled me into the office and discussed that would have been around 2008, 2009 time frame. It was in garrison, so it was between deployments.
Yeah.
So around that time is when they talked to me. And yeah, I can remember telling them that I knew it was out there was nothing I could do about it, and thinking that there was really no way to go about, you know, anything at that point. You know, I didn't know what I could do about it, if anything.
Yeah. So it was from when our emails, it was one of the fellow soldiers that was caught with a bunch of child, and then your commanding officer pulled you into the office to go through and said they'd seen you in the films?
I did not look at any of the films. All they said was, hey, we had to look at some of this stuff, and one of those people looks just like you. And that's the first time that I had, I think, ever really spoken about it. And I said, yes, you know, those are probably me. But I did not personally see them. They described something that I knew that I had been a part of.
Yeah. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Here's what it
more?
was.
Yeah.
They pulled me in, I can remember First Sergeant Bayless was kind of red-faced, and he said, have you ever made a movie with a black girl? And you know, that obviously was, I mean, I'm not a movie star, so obviously that's a very odd question, and I knew exactly what he was talking about when he said that.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, yes. So he said, okay, well, we have found some images that are of an explicit nature on another soldier's computer, I think, and they look like you. And I said, well, they are me. So he said, and you look underage. I think from that was part of their investigation to confirm that the images of the participants in these films were underage.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just a secondary verification that, I was only 12 or 13 at the time of that film, maybe even 11. So, I mean, obviously I'm not an adult, and even when I was an adult at 18 or 19, I still looked young. So obviously at 11, 12, whatever I was in that film, I would not have looked like a mature, an adult,
Mm-hmm.
So it was more, I think, for confirmation that these images were of children. So I don't remember if he actually got court-martialed or if he just got UCMJ, which is just their lower grade of punishment. But I do know that he was chaptered out of the military over it. I think he might have had to do a little jail time, but I don't recall. I can't even recall the soldier's name that got caught with it. I just knew he was an NCO, a staff sergeant.
And did anyone else ever talk to you about the films again? Did they ever talk? Did they ever infer that there was any further investigation in terms to when the films were produced? Did they ask you anything about who is involved, or did they? No.
They didn't go into any legality other than the prosecution of the soldier with the images. The first time that I can recall anybody that it ever coming up, I always knew that they were, that the films, at least one or two of them were out there. I don't even know how many times I was filmed. But I can tell you that some of them are extraordinarily horrible. I can give you one instance where they were filming us. It was me and a girl that I knew, that I had been trafficked with in other venues. And while we were filming, they came in and shot her in the head. So, obviously. So that would be...
Was that the runaway?
That was another girl, and I can't even remember her name. Yeah. The runaway was tortured to death in a duplex in Enterprise, Alabama. My parents did that, and that wasn't on film, not her being tortured, but that was that black girl that I'm telling you about. But they went and got her because they were afraid that this was after the investigation in Tennessee, and they were afraid that they would go down for child. So they were wanting to her, and then they were wanting to get rid of me via an accident, but they couldn't because they had already tried to kill me several times. They had the incident in Texas involving the Chevy van. There was another incident in Texas where my dad threw me into the middle of a pool and said sink or swim, and somebody saw it and called the sheriff. So there was a police report on that. And then there was a third instance in Texas where my dad threw me down a flight of stairs, and that one fractured my skull. Now, there may have been other things that happened as well, but I remember those three were enough that they generated an investigation. There were enough things that happened in Texas that my dad moved from Texas to Tennessee, and then got in trouble in Tennessee, and then got in trouble in Tennessee, and then moved to Alabama, got in trouble in Alabama, and then we just moved one more time.
So when Samantha were all of these parties at the farm or similar locations to the farm where there was?
It was multiple farms.
Multiple farms, and usually it was parties. So there was individuals like Trump that were flown into the parties, and then
and they would have like a building, a house, and they would usually have like a tent set up, and it was almost like a little, I don't want to say a fair. It wasn't that big. They didn't have rides or anything, but it was a kind of a coordinated deal. Sometimes they would have the bare knuckle fighting. That probably is how my dad got involved with these people, because you've got boxing and stuff like that on TV, but that's really all you had back in the 70s and 80s. The more the MMA type of stuff wasn't allowed. And these fights were a little more gruesome. They didn't fight to the death or anything like that, but they were bloody, and these were fights, and not just boxing. And so the rich people would pay to see that. Sometimes they'd have like a band playing, just like what you would expect at like a fair or something.
So the rich folks would get flown in, associated with Epstein, and they would pay to watch the victims fight. The victims were all underage. And would they pay to then assault the victims after the fights or during the
Yes.
fights? And they'd pay to torture the victims and the victims.
Yes.
And the victims.
But now some of the fights were adults. So if they had some big old country boy and some other guy, they would pay to see that. They would also pay to watch the kids fight, and they did pay to watch me fight. I would fight other kids, and my dad was my initial trainer for me to learn how to fight. I would later go on to be a boxer, an amateur boxer, but that's how I got my start in all of that. So yes, they would have paid for that, and the experiences were different each time. There wasn't like a set thing. You never really knew what was going to happen. So, part of it, a lot of it just comes down to money, So if they offered $5,000 to have with me, then my dad was willing to do that. Whatever the dollar amounts were, I don't know.
Sasha, that's assault. I mean, I just want to say something first. I think you're extremely brave. You behave extremely strong, like a warrior. And I just want to stop and say it's important to me to say that, because a lot of folks, wouldn't even survive such trauma, but you've survived, and you conduct yourself with dignity and gracefully, and it's important to me to say that. I hope you know that. I hope you have a sense of your own honor and chivalrousness.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I can remember some arm of law enforcement showing me video of me harming one of the people that they were filming me with. Now, I don't know how that came about, whether they drugged me and I lost my mind, or they told me to do it. I don't know the circumstances, but I can remember being in that room and them saying, well, you did this. And it may have not even been law enforcement. It may have been, like the people that were running that. But I can remember being really upset because I had no recollection of having done that. It was me in the video, and I was beating a girl senseless. I didn't hurt her or anything like that, but I.
Yeah.
So, and I have a feeling, this part I can't prove because I only have my own experiences. But what the whole thing seems to be is that they first abuse you, then they get you on film abusing others, and now they have you trapped as well.
Yeah.
So you can't talk about the abuse that they did to you. If they want you to be a legacy victim, somebody that they can use in the future, well, then they've got to get you on tape doing monstrous things to other people as well, because now they have the leverage to keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. No, and you know what? You're exactly right. That's exactly the tactic.
And I kind of wanted to discuss one other thing, too. One kind of theme at these parties that seemed to be very, very well thought out is they would have a larger party in the beginning, right? And in these larger parties, you might have, say, a couple of fights or some drug use or, things that were kind of, let's say, mildly illegal. But the parties would go on for multiple days, and as the thing wound down to the smaller inner circle in the last day or last 2 days or whatever, that's when the really horrible shit happened.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the people that attended the party, possibly even people like Clarence Thomas or Lindsey Graham, may have been involved in lesser things, but then were also at the same time and place where these more horrible things happened, but they didn't necessarily participate in those more horrible things. So that seemed to be an underlying theme of, and this is just me speculating here as an adult, where they would try to get these affluent people in all of these positions of power and influence to come participate in these parties where all of these things were going on, so that if Clarence Thomas, I'll just use him, if he was there at the party, well, then surely nothing, that nefarious could be going on type of situation.
Yeah.
So it seemed to be very well thought out how they kind of did things. But as the party wound down, that's when people in my position would really begin to get scared, because that's when either we're going to get assaulted and maybe really busted up, or, you know, I mean, even watching somebody die is really horrible, you know.
Did you see anyone else die besides Samantha and Patricia?
Yes.
Yes.
So I watched a grown man get beaten to death. He had done something that pissed off the people that were running it, and they did. I saw another girl. In addition to Patricia, when I was making the film with the girl, they came in and shot her while we were having, that was some sort of snuff film.
Yeah.
And then in the brothel, there were two people that got Sarah, and then a girl, I don't remember her name. She was shot, and then another girl was also shot.
Okay. And all of these.
Remember,
no, go ahead.
Me and Samantha having to clean up. We didn't have to do anything with the body, but I can remember me and Samantha had to clean up the blood and everything from both Sarah's, which was an assisted. Samantha actually shot Sarah, but Sarah wanted her to do it. She just couldn't pull the trigger herself. So Samantha did it. I was in the room when she did it, but it wasn't. Samantha didn't hurt. Sarah I can remember her just saying, I can't go to another party. I can't be here. Please, you know.
Another of the victims, I don't know if you've read about, the British woman, Sarah Ransom, was on the Epstein Island and tried to swim off the island and was willing to drown than go through another torture.
I mean, it's some horrible shit.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can remember the hillbillies that my dad sold me to when I was small. They were mean, but I can remember the meanest motherfuckers are those rich people. They are just demonic, Trump included.
Yeah. With the rich folks that you were sold to, that was all associated with the Epstein-Trump trafficking ring. And you said to me you thought Trump ran things with Epstein. Is that true?
Oh, yes. He was not just a client. He was one of the people that facilitated all that stuff. It was almost like, and this is just my childhood brain piecing it together, it was almost as if Epstein worked for Trump. And not just Trump, but him and maybe 6 or 8 other super rich guys. So
do you remember
Epstein ran it at the behest of Trump and that circle of people. So it was just I couldn't tell you how many people, but he was the only one that I remember that was at that level. But it wasn't that Trump was a John visiting, you know, Epstein's empire of child victims. It was Trump was in a position above Epstein. It was as if Epstein worked for Trump. Yeah. And the rest of those ultra-rich guys.
Do you remember?
It was like he ran that ring for them.
No, I understand. So Jeffrey was sort of presented publicly as the ringleader of the ring, but Jeffrey was basically behaving like a general manager of the ring. And then there was 7 or 8 other individuals, such as Trump, that were actually actively running the ring.
He would give Epstein that caliber of person, because it wasn't just Epstein. Epstein had people that worked with him too on a lower level that would go like find runaways and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know where they got the people. I can't say that, but you know, it was this whole thing was being run as for those rich people.
Yeah. Do you have the sense that any of them were actually secretly practicing any sort of occult rituals, or were they just like rich, fiendish, fake Christians that just didn't experience a conscience?
I think it's the latter. Just rich, fake Christians. I can tell you one thing specifically that Trump did. Yeah. And that I remember vividly. I was exhausted. I couldn't fight back, and he sat on my chest and would choke me until I was unconscious. And each time that he did it, he'd say, "I'm gonna." So, and then he would choke me until I was out. And you know, he did that half a dozen times or however many times. And I can remember him saying, I thought I'd do that time. I'm really going to do it this time, and then choke me again. So he would just do that over and over again until he got bored of it. So
did you get the sense that he was trying to you, or just to torture you about the thought of killing you?
In the moment, you think you're going to die.
Yeah.
And that's the experience that he wants to see the fear in another human being's eyes that thinks that he's,
Yeah.
But looking back, I just think he was just torturing me. I think if had he wanted to me, he could have. He could have just kept choking me until I was gone. Because I did get choked until I was unconscious. I don't know, as many as half a dozen times, maybe more.
Yeah.
So that's the type of thing that he would do, or worse. I believe, I wouldn't swear to this, but I believe that on that instance, my dad had told him, hey, you can't bust him up. You can't break stuff. Because all his CPS bullshit. So, and I want to say he was upset at the end of that too, because of the bruising. They didn't break bones or anything, but, obviously I had bruising around my neck and different bruises on my body. And that's something else too, that I'm just remembering right now as I'm talking to you. At least one instance, the school nurse got CPS involved, I believe, in both Tennessee and Alabama, because of the bruises that I showed up to school with.
Yeah.
And of course, my parents just said, hey, he's clumsy, he fell out of a treehouse, or whatever excuse they gave, but it was looked into, but obviously nothing materialized from it.
Okay.
The first thing that I think about is probably the most crying I've ever done on video. Can be found on my second channel called Didi Got Politics, where Trump is talking about bringing the Bibles back into the classrooms. And it really touched me. But in that video, I say, I don't know if Trump is telling the truth. I don't know if he's being genuine or not. I don't know if this is just to pull in Christians. I don't know. But it really touched me when he spoke about the children, because we don't speak enough about the children. This isn't the first time that Trump has been accused. If you're a Patreon member, then you would know that we've reacted to a couple of people on Patreon that's accused Trump already. And we've also on Patreon dropped a documentary about the modeling industry and what the modeling industry is actually about. And many models testified in this documentary that we reacted to, talking about what the modeling industry is really like, what it actually takes to make it to the top. It's not just about beauty. It's not just about knowing how to walk. It's not just about your body type. There are other quote-unquote politics that take place, which reminds me of Erica Kirk. And it says here, a silver of timeline to today. After I first spoke with Sasha, I selectively contacted allies, church, police, and government officials in various countries with a call to warn, to stand, to investigate. I stored copies of documents with local police and various other allies for safekeeping. I provided initial cooperative documents to individuals and offices who have sworn oaths to help the innocent, to forewarn, to help jumpstart investigations in various countries, and to provide context on the larger criminal enterprises internationally, the secretive perpetrators, the silenced victims, the missing documents, the hidden evidence, the unseen patterns between perpetrators, only recently revealed. And when the FBI questionably contacted Sasha during the summer, I moved Sasha to safety out of the country. And she goes here to list all the people that she contacted, or many of the people that she contacted. And she ends this off, at least part one, with another Bible verse. It says Matthew 10:26. So do not be afraid of them, for there is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, and nothing hidden that will not be made known. Again, the link can be found in the description. It's well over an hour long. I just want to say, man, to any victim that's out there, if this turns out to be true, it takes a lot of courage to do. I support victims, real victims, actual victims, not people that lie for clout, not people that lie because they have their own agendas, but actual victims. In my personal opinion, this person sounds extremely genuine, and you have to ask yourself, what does this person have to gain from doing this? In my past life, I worked with an organization that did policy work to try to attack and end human trafficking, which is a national movement. It's a national organization across, it's a multi-state agenda. And that's one of the proudest works in organizations I've ever been a part of. But it's not easy work. It's very difficult. These people are advanced. It's dangerous for obvious reasons. And we don't even have to ask ourselves, why is this not made mainstream news? Is it because there's no indictments as of yet? Because this hasn't stopped the mainstream media in the past from platforming quote unquote victims. But I think we know the answer. Who owns the media? Who's a part of the Trump administration? Who is it that we've said owns Trump? There's your answer. Y'all hop in the comment section, man. Let me know what you all think. I'll spend a little bit more time listening to some of these other audio files. And maybe from a three-dimensional perspective, I can do a part 2 for Patreon. Again, if you want to hear the entire audio, link can be found in the description, man. Pray for everybody mentioned in this video. Again, everything mentioned is alleged. I don't know if these things are true. I just know what someone else said, and I just simply reacted to it. I'll catch y'all in the next one, man. Peace. Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.